Welcome to the Shipping Podcast, where I meet interesting maritime professionals sharing their passion for the shipping industry and their everyday job. I am your host. My name is Lena Gothberg. Hello, Shipping Podcast lovers. Welcome to the 92nd episode of the Shipping Podcast, where we will be getting a crash course into the state of the maritime industry right now, or rather in May, when I went to the Opening Oceans Conference in Copenhagen. The Opening Oceans Conference is a new initiative from Nor-Shipping in Oslo, where they try to gather the people who are interested in the unique business potential of the ocean space. And I sat down with their keynote speakers. I'm very grateful to the Opening Oceans for letting me speak to them. I will be introducing you to Chris Clott. He works for the Maritime College at the State University of New York and is the co-founder of Maritime Global Innovation Centre. He is talking about where are we right now when it comes to innovation, technology, development, old meeting the new world, and so on. I won't keep you. This is my conversation with Christopher Clott. Welcome to the Shipping Podcast. Could you please introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Chris Clott. I am a professor at SUNY Maritime College, which is based in New York City. I am also the co-founder of Maritime Global Technologies Innovation Centre, or as we refer to it, MGTIC, or sometimes I just call it MIGTIC.
How did you come in contact with shipping?
Oh, I've been in this field a long, long time. When I graduated from college, one of the very first jobs I had was in Houston, Texas. I left that. I needed another job. I ended up getting one with a company called Barber Blue Sea, which was Swedish. And it was a very brief stint. I never thought much of it. I left. I thought that was that. But a few years later, I knew enough to be dangerous, as the guy who hired me said. I was in a sales and marketing capacity for a very small independent operator. I moved to a larger American-owned company by the name Likes Lines, which went out of business. And then I went to one called OOCL, which was Hong Kong-based, which was just sold recently to Costco. From that, I segued to, strangely enough, an academic career, which this is not the career path that most people in maritime have. I had started a business. It was a trading company. We were hoping to make a go of it, particularly with the Japanese market, which suddenly went the other way, and I became kind of a de facto academic. I got a PhD. I have constructed supply chain programs, developed them. I've developed a lot of international business, international education initiatives over the years. And a few years back, after many years living in the Chicago area, which is in the midsection of the United States, I took a job at the California Maritime Academy on the West Coast and reconnected a great deal with the industry. And from there, I moved to New York, to the other side of the country. And I have a wonderful set of people I work with at the Maritime School who have been incredibly supportive of initiatives such as the one that we're going to talk about.
So what are the biggest changes that you have seen?
Oh my gosh. The industry that I started in 35 years ago, could it be that long? Maybe even longer than that now, has changed markedly. I was in the liner shipping side of things. And of course, there's been massive consolidation. Salespeople who traveled a great deal, such as I did, and saw customers, exporters and importers, have become somewhat more relics over time. Sales staffs have declined a great deal. There is still a huge piece of human contact within the industry, but it is an industry that has focused more and more on cost cutting, perhaps to their detriment. Ship size, ships that were 2,000 TEU vessels in the late 1980s would have been a good-sized ship. A huge ship would have been 3,000 TEU, and that kind of size is dwarfed now by the gigantic mega container ships that we have now. Supply chains were far less well-oiled and well-developed in those days. There was much more of a, in terms of exporting and importing, obviously all the documents and all of these different pieces that one had to learn. You still have to learn the industry, you still have to know it, but it's the technology piece has changed the game and will continue to change it.
How do you see the future of shipping?
Oh, geez. And I attend many conferences on this subject and asked many times on that question. We are probably within the liner side going to have, in my guess, somewhere between 4 and 6 operators, and that will be it. And whether or not that is a good thing, I think that certainly impacts the choices that customers have. We have a whole new raft of third-party individuals, 3PLs, NVOs, freight forwarders, who really do control much of the cargo now. You still have beneficial cargo owners, but more and more they lack this deep expertise and the ability to get the great pricing that the third-party, the intermediaries have. So that's the liner side of things. The tanker side of things continues to innovate because of new developments. We're seeing more LNG-powered ships all the time. Obviously, trade patterns have a huge impact on shipping in general. The way that technology is going to come in and alter the field, how it isn't a question of if we will have automated ships, it's when we will have them in pretty common use. And so we're in that prototype stage. We're in that kind of legal gray area at the moment, which we are going to rapidly leave. You will see automated ships, I think, in quite common venues, smaller scale. I don't know that any ship operator is entrusting $1 billion worth of cargo to an autonomous ship quite yet, if ever. But you're going to see more and more things controlled shoreside. This has always been a business that has been a tough one to make money in. We're probably going to see very different types of ships in operation, and as things such as blockchain come into being, that will probably again change the game dramatically as far as impacting how all the pieces work, the role of intermediaries. I think that we're on the cusp of major, massive changes, and my best guess is within 5 years, the world that we live in now, in the maritime world, will be almost nearly unrecognizable.
Is that a promise?
It is not a promise. I am not that much of a. It's an observation. Like I say, I think there are many questions ahead that are going to need to be answered. There's an international legal gray area regarding all of this, and how quickly can there. We don't have any world laws. We have the IMO, which has a very small footprint when we're talking just these vast differences in how shipping is perceived in different parts of the world. Ports and the mechanization of ports, and some ports are going to be winners and some are not. Certainly for these much larger ships, what kind of investment is going to be needed to be state of the art? And then of course you've got these huge problems between what is state of the art, let's say in North America, in Europe, North Europe, And then other parts of the world that are they going to be further left behind? Are we going to have literally 2 or 3 tracks of things that, and I worry about that. I worry about that piece a lot. I worry about the have-nots falling even further behind in this growing technology-enabled field.
So what about your initiative?
So our initiative the Maritime Global Technologies Innovation Center. We are an innovation center. We are not an incubator. We are not an accelerator. What does an innovation center do? And we, 3 words here: connect and catalyze. As that, our goal is very much to knit together pieces that of this industry that don't necessarily have much to do with each other. The maritime sector, the technology sector, the finance sector, and maybe the greater logistics sector as well. And connect these dots, connect these pieces together as best as possible. Spur innovative ideas, spur startups, spur their ability to bring things to market. What I am not getting, as we are connected to the Maritime School, I'm not getting an equity stake in any of these things. That would be nice, but that's not the mission here. The goal is to influence and to drive that change and drive meaningful change. And so you often hear the term disrupt, technology disruption, and I think I much prefer technology solutions. We're all familiar with many of the issues that the maritime industry faces that need to be solved. And so let's go about solving them. And I also like the idea of driving this not at the level of the sky, but to drive it down to the lowest levels. How are we going to do this? And who can make these things occur? I was just at a forum, we're in a discussion, and we talked about how conservative the industry is, and for good reason, probably because it has been always one that is about survival of the next day. It is an industry that closely tracks world trade, which is always going to be up and down as the world economy goes up and down. So driving new things that can occur, that can assist, that can make it a better industry, that can better satisfy all of the people, and that's all of us in the world, who rely on a viable shipping industry.
And how are you going to do it?
Oh, with a lot of help. Without a lot of assistance, these kinds of initiatives don't go anywhere. And one thing that we are fairly certain of is that we have to develop a means to allow, let's say, the tech sector to communicate with the maritime sector in some tangible way, to understand each other. They're talking 2 different languages in many cases. How can we bridge that? What can we do that can influence that piece? So there's certainly an education piece or a workforce development piece. The industry is crying out for individuals who have an interest in and ability to utilize new technologies in this field. And we have to get them there. And we have to interest them and allow them to play this role. To connect and catalyze beyond that is to obviously interact in a global way. While we're based in New York, which is one of the world maritime capitals, it's not the only place, obviously. It is a gateway to Europe, to Asia, to South America, to Africa, to Australia. We have to interact with all of that and work with the different groups that are seeking to do somewhat similar things and make sure that our impact is a global one, not just a local one.
So my next question is usually, how do we become more visible? And this might be a part of that then?
In terms of the industry itself, this is, as I had mentioned previously in a discussion, this is not always an industry that wanted to be visible, but it is finding that it has to be. It is having to address needs from customers that are demanding far more transparency than it has provided in the past. And while I hate to use the word force, in essence, because I come from this industry, I understand it, and I understand many of its needs, and I think that I and others like me can begin to fulfill that role of opening and shedding light on sometimes an industry that is often in the shadows.
Yeah, I usually call it the Cinderella industry.
Yeah, very much so. Or I will call it sometimes the man behind the curtain.
Yeah, and we have a tendency to speak to each other.
We do indeed. And that has been a detriment that most of us acknowledge. So I go to many conferences, and you often hear the same laments, okay? We need young people. Well, you're going to have to interest young people in this. We need women. Well, what are you doing to interest women in this? And are you shutting them out? We need more diversity. Well, what are you doing to address those needs?
But do you think they see?
They do, and they don't, because it's a very closed little world,
yeah.
and it's often been one of interlocking families or individuals who have known each other for many years. It's hard to be open. There's a sense that, yeah, Chris, what you're saying we have to do, but then
not in my backyard.
Yeah. How? But somebody else can do that. So what you want to continue to address are real needs and gain attention from individuals who have often done things in the same way for a long time with the same people. I feel that there's I've seen the industry evolve over the years. It's evolving even more rapidly now. And some of that is because of the consolidation.
Yeah, and digitalization. And then you get the transparency.
Right.
And then you get a new ball game.
Right. And we need a new ball game.
And then you get the new generation coming in.
Well, and then one day that new generation will be an old generation. But for now, what is acknowledged is we need a generation that is far more savvy in technology, far more conversant with it. We don't have those individuals at high levels, and we need them, and that's a absolute need at this point.
Right now, I think almost every ship owner, at least in Scandinavia, has got either a garage or a lab, because that's the new buzzword in a way. And some of them invite startups that have cashed in to do the change from within. Others do hire consultants or do it like that. Others just sit there and wait for disruption to maybe happen.
And you, what is it? Years ago, I did a doctoral work on strategy, which is, of course, you're talking classic things here. The prospector, the one who is out there feeling for new market needs, and they're at sometimes the tip of the spear. The analyzer, the one who's going to wait and see what seems to be working, but is not afraid to innovate. The defender, the one who has decided, well, we're going to have our niche and we're going to price out anybody who attempts to compete. And that last person, that total reactor, who is only going to do things when absolutely forced, and probably will only do things because somebody else did them, and will probably not do it very well, But Europe is, in my view, and Scandinavia is quite well ahead in this, quite well ahead of the States in much of the innovation piece. This is probably this would be acknowledged in the States as well. As far as other parts of the world, most definitely China has an initiative regarding artificial intelligence and such, and intends to become much more of a force, global force, and in the maritime world than they have been. Time will tell if that occurs. Singapore has launched itself as an innovation center. Don't forget a place like Dubai that has become has tried to build itself as a gateway for many things. And never discount groups such as the Greek ship owners, who have survived over a millennia, have witnessed all the ups and downs of this industry, and somehow have always had a natural feel for how to make money in this world.
Yeah. There are so many different angles you can view this.
There are. I think in general, it's an exciting time to be in this industry. It's very frustrating for those of us who are, I think, in the midst of it. My guess, and as you say, I'm not a betting man, so I won't. But my observation is that we will look back on this period of time and say, "Wow, it was interesting," because I think the major changes are going to occur quite soon.
I agree with you. So who do you think I should meet the next? Who would you like to listen to?
Oh my gosh! At our event, I missed the MERS guy but I don't know that I would have. I probably would have heard. I would know what he would be talking about. I want to hear from the individuals who have been involved in the tech piece. It was nice at our panel discussion to have a couple of them who have had startups in this field, and some of their observations on this piece. I think this has been an excellent venue, a good conference, and I would certainly love to attend another North Shipping event in the future, because it's a great way to interact with individuals who are, in my view, at the forefront of much of what is driving this industry.
I'll see what I can do then.
Okay.
Best of luck with your initiative.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chris. Thank you for sharing your view of the state of the maritime industry right now and what we need to do and how we should try and reach out beyond our own little bubble to talk to people that could help us develop our own industry. For those of you that want to follow Chris on Twitter, he is at CC Maritime. And I think you will see that he's got a lot of interesting things to say. To Christopher and the other people who are now working with innovation centers, I know there are a few, and I think that's the only way forward. No one can do this change, this paradigm change on their own. We need to work together. I would just like to add, I've got 5,000 downloads every month. There are people in 166 countries listening to this. And many of them are young people who find it very hard to find information or to see beyond their own little world what is happening out in the maritime industry. I get a lot of feedback from students, young people, teachers in the maritime colleges around the world, and other people who want to be a part of this change that is happening right now. If we stop for a minute and think about how do other people find information about our industry? I mean, they will not subscribe to a trade paper, will they? And I looked into what is the cost of subscribing to a trade paper. I won't reveal it to you. You can Google that. But who wants to pay so much money to get some information about an industry they don't know anything about? And that is what's driving me. I want to open the door to show how fascinating this industry is and how many interesting jobs there are. I think we need to start to think about what kind of conversations do we want to have and with whom? And that is something I want you to tell me. So please, give me your feedback. Who do you want to have a conversation with? Because what I see in the trade papers, it's the same people that are getting interviewed everywhere. And usually when they got something to tell. So I will leave you with this thought, and I expect you to come back to me. Because I cannot do this on my own. We need to do it together. The next speaker, the next guest, is also one of the keynote speakers from the Opening Oceans Conference. I will leave you with that thought and say, from me to you, over and out. Thank you for listening to the Shipping Podcast. Don't forget to tell everyone that you meet that there is a shipping podcast available and that they should download it and listen to the maritime professionals who are sharing their passion for the shipping industry.